Hi, my name is Jackie, and I'm a global lab architect. I work on a DevOps team that builds and supports the infrastructure behind cybersecurity training labs, and I'm part of a group responsible for both the physical and the virtual devices. These systems run the virtual machines that people use to practice the skills that they have learned through their cybersecurity training. My team designs, deploys, maintains, and secures the systems that people use to learn hands-on cybersecurity. Everything from physical servers and networking equipment to private and public cloud environments. I focus mostly on hardware and networking side, especially firewalls, routing, and secure access like VPNs. A lot of my job is making sure these systems are reliable, secure, and always available, so that people can train for real-world cybersecurity scenarios. And today I'll be answering your questions from my inbox. Have you ever had a lab environment get compromised by a student doing something they weren't supposed to do, and what did it look like? Yes, that has happened. It was a specific hardware-based lab, and they actually brought down all the connected pods of that type at that site. So what we had to do is we took the time to see how that happened and why was it able to affect the other pods. Once we completed the analysis, we were able to come up with a solution that was able to properly isolate the pods so that in the future, if something similar were to happen again, it would only affect the one pod and not all the others. We also took that event and looked at our other sites to see if they were also vulnerable and make the same adjustments as we did at that first site. Basically, just trying to learn from what we did. Let's see question number 2. When a zero-day vulnerability gets discovered, what does that window look like before a patch is available, and what do you do in the meantime? This is highly dependent on what the vulnerability affects. For the most part, the first question is, what is vulnerable? How severe is it? And is there a way to reduce or eliminate the vulnerability by changing a configuration, either as a permanent fix or maybe just a temporary workaround until a patch becomes available? This could look like temporarily restricting who can access a service or limit where they can access it from. If the service isn't critical, it could also look like disabling it until a patch is available. Sometimes it just looks like extra monitoring. Every case is different. All right, let's see question number 3. How do you decide what to patch first when everything seems urgent? Well, when multiple ones are needed at the same time, I just need to take a few minutes to list out the current patches that are needed and then try to order them by which ones I see as most important. And I also like to add an estimate of the amount of time needed to do them. Something that is publicly exposed on the internet will usually have a more immediate urgency than something that is behind my firewall and only accessible if connected to my VPN. If the upgrade is needed due to a vulnerability, I also make note if there is a workaround that I can use, apply it before I'm doing the upgrade, so that I have a bit more time to test and plan my upgrades during times that are less disruptive to my users. Typically, I'll start at the top of the list and work my way down. But sometimes I will do a slightly less critical upgrade first, especially if it's quick or it has a very wide impact. Or sometimes I'll group them together and make a plan to do all the upgrades at one site at a time before moving on to the next. The big takeaway I have for people here is you should take a minute to figure out what to do first. You should absolutely do them right and test them properly after each upgrade, but the key is to pick one and start the work, be it planning or be it the actual upgrade. You won't always make the perfect choice, but I've seen people spend days debating which upgrade is more important. And in that time that it took for them to finally come to a decision, they could have actually done both upgrades. All right, let's see what the next question is. What do you do with hardware or software that can't be patched anymore, but still needs to stay running? So usually when this happens, I take a look at the device or the software and do a little audit of who and what has access. If this is a publicly exposed service, I see if it truly needs to be, or if it can be turned into an internally available service instead. I check the protections in front of the device. Do I need to add a different type of firewall, better suited to protecting it from threats? I also check what the device or software has access to and see if all of it is really necessary. And importantly, I ask, what is the timeline for this device? Is there a replacement coming? If so, when? Is the replacement delayed because of issues found in testing, or did we miss that this one is no longer supported and needs to be replaced? The goal of these questions is both to see how long we need to keep this device running, as well as to see if there are any other devices that we may have missed. Have you ever found a security issue on a server or hardware that everyone missed just because it was set up and forgotten about? Yes, I have seen this. Typically, it was someone building or testing a setup, and it was meant as a proof of concept, and it worked. So it just got put into production. And they moved on to the next project without putting in any extra thought into security, upkeep, or maintenance. When you find something like this, it's important to take some time and address the security issues, as well as add this to your regular maintenance. Usually takes more work the first time to get it updated, but as long as you keep up with the regular maintenance, after that, it's a lot less work. Okay, next question. What does it actually mean for a network to be misconfigured? And how often is that the root cause of a real problem? Well, misconfiguration to me means something is not configured either the correct or sometimes even optimal way. Sometimes it's because a person learned how to do something on an older software version and didn't realize that things have changed. Maybe a new feature was added that does the function better, and they were only familiar with the old one, so they set it up that way. Maybe somebody put the wrong IP address or subnet. That would also be a misconfiguration. A typo, a wrong checkbox, settings, anything. They can all be misconfigurations. At the heart of it, misconfiguration means something is wrong and needs to be corrected in order to get things working optimally. I would say that more often than not, a misconfiguration is the problem. How do you handle hardware that's geographically spread out and nobody's physically touched in years? Have good redundancy, so that if something dies unexpectedly, you don't lose all access to the site. Speaking from experience. Have good documentation, including pictures of all your equipment and cabling. And try to find a trusted contact at each site that can follow instructions well, and also asks questions if they are unsure instead of just acting. Also, central management for a lot of your devices. It can help maintain similar configurations at all sites. So that way, even if you haven't physically touched that specific site in years, you are familiar with it because the configurations and setups are so similar to your other sites. Have you ever had to make a call to leave something unpatched because patching it would break something more important? Yes, I've had to do this a few times, and this falls into one of two categories for me. Either the device cannot be patched and must instead be replaced, in which case we have to start prioritizing the replacement. Or this is because of a bug in the software or firmware, in which case we look at when the next patch is coming and if it is expected to fix the issue or not. If not, we can then raise this issue with the vendor and ask for a fix. Every time that I've been involved in this decision, it was never, okay, we just never update this. It was always a, how do we get this to something that we can upgrade and support in the future? All right, let's see what's next. What's something you learned from a failure in your infrastructure work that you couldn't have learned any other way? There will always be something that you weren't expecting, and figuring out how to deal with it and move forward is just part of the job. For me, there's nothing more humbling than thinking, oh, it's only going to take 5 minutes to replace this failed part, for it to then turn into an hour or more of pure frustration, just from fighting with something as simple as a broken or stuck rail. And that's all the questions that we have today. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this, things will break, mistakes will happen. Good documentation and proper planning can help take a lot of the stress off when things do inevitably go wrong.